Okay, now let's get to someone who Gail knows very well. Deputy Mayor, and so does Learning Leaders. He's always here every year, and we're very supportive and thankful for him to be here. Deputy Mayor for Education and Community Development, a great friend, a great supporter, and please welcome the Honorable Dennis Walcott to help us with our countdown.
Thank you, Dana. You're welcome. Nice to see you. Thank you, Dana, and good morning to all of you. Good morning. I love Learning Leaders. I really, really love Learning Leaders because all of you are doing great things. And I was asking Mindy before I came up whether it was last year or 2 years ago when I came up here and I could not spell. How many remember that? Remember that? I remember that so well. I was so scared that Dana Tyler was going to show it on the evening news that night. And I was watching the news. I said, oh my God, the Deputy Mayor for Education, he tried to spell leaders and he couldn't spell it. And so I'm back again this year to tell you that I've been promoted. I can now spell leaders. And then next year, Merrill, I will be able to do long division. So I'm working step by step by step to progress, so I'll be able to graduate from the New York City public school system. But thanks to all of you, a lot of our children are able to progress, do well in education, and graduate because they have dedicated volunteers like all of you in this room. And as our days wind down in this administration, you know, people always come up to you and say, well, what do you plan to do next? You know, what will your next job be? And I was sitting there thinking, you know, one of the things I really want to do next is to be a learning leader. To me, that is truly where the action is at because all of you represent the best of New York City. You're constantly giving back your hard work, your dedication to our children, your volunteering in schools throughout New York City, and our children are the beneficiaries of your volunteerism. You know, and listening to Merrill talk about the role of volunteerism in her life and the volunteers that made a big difference for her, all of us, one way or another, have been impacted by volunteers. And a lot of times, you won't even know what you've done to help a child along because the true success of a volunteer is sometimes not being known, just being there on a regular basis. And so that's why today's event and the years in the past are so important because a lot of times you may not get the thanks that you truly deserve. And so you've seen a host of individuals from the Board of Regents, from the UFT, AFT, from the Chancellor to my twin, Gail Brewer, to myself and others, Martine, come up here because we're coming up here to say one thing. Thank you. Thank you for all that you do. You do outstanding work. So again, I want to say thank you to all of you. But also, and Merrill touched on this, Randy talked about this as well, and I see Amina in the audience and others from the UFT. So I just want to have this emblazoned really in our memory because I actually heard Randy quote from our Learning Environment Survey, which is something that to me is amazing. Not that Randy wouldn't quote from it, but it's talking about the changes and reforms that have taken place where people are now really getting feedback from individuals, from our parents, from our teachers, from our school community as far as how we can make the system better. And having Randy quote from the Learning Environment Survey talking about parents' feedback, to me is something extremely important. And I just want to talk about a couple of changes that have taken place over the last 6 years. And as a result of all of you, these changes have really been internalized in our system to a way that to me is something that's extremely proud. Let's talk about Black and Latino students, for example. Over the last 4 or 5 years, we've seen a gain in the number of Black and Latino students participating in our Gifted and Talented program by 53%. We've seen a gain in the number of Black and Latino students who are taking and passing advanced placement by 35% since 2002. To me, one of the most amazing figures is that in the last 5 to 6 years, we have seen a 50% increase in the number of Black and Latino students who are taking the PSAT. Taking the PSAT, which is the first step in taking the SAT. all the work that you're doing is allowing us to make sure that all of our students benefit, all of our students gain, and all of our students become lifelong learners. So again, on behalf of the mayor, I want to say thank you to all of you, but more importantly, when I listened to Joel acknowledge the young woman who is 83 years old, who's been volunteering for 13 years, and Joel talked about coming back in 13 years to really acknowledge her again. Mayor, I don't know if that means Joel's going to be the chancellor in 13 years. He's coming back as a guest in 13 years, so we have to double check that. But the one thing I am sure of is that all of you, I didn't say that, Merrill. The one thing, though, that I am sure of is that all of you as learning leaders will definitely be here in 13 years because it's in your blood and it's a commitment and it's a lifelong commitment in making sure we improve the schools for our students. So Mindy, to the learning leaders, we love you. And I'll show you how much I love you because I left my wife at home. Today is supposed to be an off day for me because my wife had foot surgery yesterday and I am a good husband. And so I took off yesterday to take care of her and I said, please, can I just go because I gave this commitment before they scheduled your date for the foot surgery. She said, okay, but Mindy, I need an absentee note from you. So when I go back and I knock on the door at home and I can say I have a note from learning leaders that will allow me back in the door. That's how much I love you, learning leaders. Thank you very much.